Good morning. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host. Munti ko na sabing horror host. Your host, Cito Beltran, welcoming you to today's episode of Agenda and thanking you, of course, for joining us today, Tuesday, February 7, 2023, Martes po. Baka akala ninyo Biyernes, like some people I know who thought it was a Friday. So sorry, it's not yet the weekend. It's just the beginning of the week. Thank you for joining us. And of course, thank you for being subscribers of Cignal TV and followers of One News and Agenda on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And of course, thank you na rin po sa PLDT. Ano ba nangyayari sa akin? Masyadong excited sa ating lineup today. But anyway, PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet. Thank you very much for keeping us online here in Lipa City, Batangas. Okay. Today we will be talking about important matters. One will be the migration of our young, talented star athletes to different countries. Meron pong nag-Amerika na, merong mga nag-Japan na, and not only did they take jobs abroad, they're actually switching nationalities or citizenship. And we will be talking about that with our first guest today. And then later, we will be talking about mental health. Now, I know many of you might say, mental health, Cito, it's a morning, you shouldn't be talking about. Sorry, but there are certain things when it involves children, when it involves students, should be a great concern for society and for all of us, whether you are a teenager, an adult, a parent, when students around us are mentally unhealthy, dapat lahat po tayo sama-samang tumulong. Okay, but before that, let's now go to our daily starter, and I just want you to please pay attention. This comes from the former Supreme Court Justice of the United States, okay, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If you don't know her, I strongly suggest you watch documentaries about her, particularly if you're a woman and a professional and struggling to find your place in the professional field, and also facing discrimination. Follow the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And doon nyo po makikita yung talagang how she fought for equality for women. But anyway, Ruth Bader Ginsburg shares with us this very precious word. If the answer is yes, we find a way. Okay, and malaki pong bagay ito kasi many of us pray and pray and pray, ask and ask permission. We pray to God for confirmation. Lord, is this what you want? Is this what I should do? Should I undertake this venture? And then when you get an answer from your boss, your parent, your partner, or your company, or God, then you start seeing the obstacles. Kumbaga, nagpaalam ka, pagkatapos nung binigyan ka ng approval, biglang, ay, teka, wala pala tayong lupa. Ay, we have no money. Ay, what are we going to do with this, with that, etc.? And what Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, if the answer is yes, we find a way. Diyan po magaling ang Pilipino. That's what we excel at. Gumagawa ng paraan. That is nothing else. We find a way. Filipino version, gawa ng paraan. But it has to be quality po, no? Hindi yung pwede na. Okay, let's now go to our front page of the Philippine Star. February 7, 2023. Very sad news, and the headline goes, Quake kills over 1,300 across Turkey and Syria. Okay, yan po, no, medyo malungkot na balita. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake rocked southeastern Turkey and northern Syria early yesterday, toppling hundreds of buildings and killing more than 1,300 people. So two countries, neighbors, both affected by a 7.8 magnitude earthquake that kills over 1,300. And that is just the initial count. Please pray for the people of Turkey and Syria, because as reported, it is raining, there is snow on the ground, and it is cold. The worst possible combinations that you could have in the middle of such a crisis. Meanwhile, on the header of the front page, at the top of the front page, China accuses the United States of indiscriminate use of force. Parang pelikula. Okay, the Chinese authorities and diplomatic officials have filed a protest with the U.S. Embassy in Beijing and accusing the U.S. of using indiscriminate, unnecessary use of force in shooting down what they call a civilian balloon, okay? Yung lobong napakalaki na may mga, sabi ng Amerikano ay spy balloon. The Chinese said it is a civilian balloon doing studies. Ano ang study ninyo? The question here is, what if a US balloon cross China, di ba? Kayo nga, yung rocket ninyo lumanding sa Pilipinas, dinakma pa ninyo doon sa mga Pilipino, sa Philippine Coast Guard ba yun, or Filipino fishermen. Anyway, let's not editorialize. Bucor files 1 billion plunder graft raft versus Bantag. Suspended Bureau of Corrections Chief Gerald Bantag is facing charges of plunder, graft, malversation of public funds, grave misconduct, and dishonesty over alleged anomalous biddings for the construction of prison facilities in Davao, Palawan, and Leyte, amounting to about 1 billion pesos. Ganun pala kalaki ang budget ng Bucor, no? Okay. Medyo biglang, suddenly, they have so much money, no? Amounting to 1 billion pesos. Okay, traditional jeepney phase-out extended. What was supposed to end this month, okay, or by March, the phase-out schedule for traditional jeepneys has been extended indefinitely. Pag-aaralan pa raw, yan na yung problema dyan Inabot na ng deadline, pero hindi pa nakita kung hanggang kailan ang extension. Anyway, the jeepney drivers and operators are celebrating. The LTFRB said, we will study adjustments to the instruction for the phase-out. And ayun po, so tuloy ang pagmamaneho ni Goryo at ng kanyang King of the Road. Okay, meanwhile, the Philippine Embassy in Ankara said no Filipino was reported killed in the earthquake that struck southeastern Turkey near the Syrian border early yesterday. Thank you, Lord. Thank God that so far wala namang fatalities. Medyo mapapaisip lang po tayo. Bakit may Pilipino sa Turkey? Alam niyo po, even for Filipino tourists, Turkey is a popular destination. In fact, I was just thinking of Turkey the other night and yesterday because sabi ko, masarap siguro mabisita yung kanilang mga historical sites. Ayun po. mukhang naging pancake ang maraming building in Turkey and in Syria. Meanwhile, the United Nations rapporteur to kickstart Philippine pathology upgrade. Okay, with the Philippines' top forensic pathologists decrying irregularities in many investigations of wrongful deaths, this week's visit from a United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Killing is expected to kickstart the DOJ's plan to install at least one forensic pathologist in each of the country's 17 regions. Chilean physician Maurice Tidbal-Bins, who specializes in forensic science, human rights, and humanitarian action, is set to meet this week with Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla, Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo, the PDEA, etc., etc. Masakla po, 3-day visit lang po yung pagpunta dito ng UN rapporteur. Okay, let's now go to better news. To the left of the front page bottom, we have a photo of Beyonce, okay, accepting the award for Best Dance and Electronic Music Album for her Renaissance album at the 65th Annual Grammy Awards in LA. With 4 wins, she broke the record for most Grammy wins at 32. 32 lang pala yung alin na yan. Lower photo shows English singer-songwriter Harry Styles accepting the award for Album of the Year for Harry's House. Okay. Meanwhile, nagpaalam na po, umalis na ng Pilipinas, the group Enhypen, okay? After performing in a concert, I believe the K-pop boy band Enhypen has left the country, but they left behind a controversy. Ito po, no? The Office of Transportation Security is investigating or probing unprofessional screening of K-pop stars at NAIA. Kasi po, meron na namang mga online komentarista na nagsabing napaka-unprofessional daw yung ginawang pagkapa ng mga OTS security. But, you know, to be fair, if you look at the picture, the women who did the frisking of the Enhypen band were evidently embarrassed, thrilled, and yet embarrassed. Kasi parang, hello, kung fans ka nga naman ng Enhypen, pagkatapos ikaw yung kakapa, di kilig and nervyos, sabay nervyos. So, can we please leave a little room for being human in this matter? Okay, that's all we have for the front page of the Philippine Star. Please get your copy, buy it at the Kanto, subscribe online, or get a subscription from your local newspaper dealer. Okay, so I don't know, are we going to go for a break? Oh yes, we are going to go for a quick break, and when we return, we talk on the first topic regarding migration of Filipino athletes and changing citizenship here on Agenda. Okay, Jaja Santiago, our volleyball wonder, is going from Filipina to Japonesa. Yuka Saso, who is partly Filipina and partly Japonesa, has decided to become Japonesa. And Wesley So, who is Filipino-Chinese, has decided to become American. What on earth is happening? Let's introduce our first guest. Gabriel, roll out the Betamax.
Quinito Henson, also known as the Dean, is a veteran sports analyst and television color commentator. Henson has a newspaper column called Sporting Chance for the Philippine Star, which he has been writing since the 1980s. In 2004, Henson was honored with the first ever Olympism Award from the Philippine Olympic Committee for excellence in journalism.
Okay, buti ka pa. Meron ka ng Olympic trophy. Ako, iniintay ko pa yung trophy ko sa sabungan. Welcome, Quinito. Dean Henson, welcome to the program.
Maraming salamat, Cito. Thank you for inviting and to all your viewers, very good morning.
Okay, nagpapatawa lang ako. I tried to put a little humor in my program, but you know, this topic really affected me because I've always admired Jaja Santiago. Yuka Saso was a really bright star, or still a bright star, and Wesley So was one of my greatest disappointments to see such a talented kid leave the country. And you know, that's just some of them. There's also our medyo mapuro lang utak ko ngayong umaga, our pole vault champion who almost left the Philippines, diba? Quinito, what's going on? Why is this happening?
Well, Cito, it's called globalization, and the world of sports has opened up, and there's been a lot of cross-migration involving athletes. As far as Filipino athletes going abroad, ako ang feeling ko, okay lang kung hindi masama yung motivation o masama yung nangyari to force a Filipino athlete to go abroad because of a misunderstanding with the National Sports Association or with any organization that is involved in sports.
Which is what happened with Wesley So and
Yes.
almost happened with EJ Obiena.
Tama yun. If it's something like that, then something's wrong and we have to stop it. We have to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Yung nangyari kay Wesley So is that he was participating in an overseas competition and he couldn't make himself available for eliminations for the national team. But at that time, he was already world ranked. So dapat seeded siya. Ba't mo naman dadalhin pa yung world ranked na chess player mo to go through eliminations for the national team? So he felt slighted. He felt that he had a commitment to compete overseas. So hindi naintindihan ng National Sports Association. It drove him to go away. And I thought that was a wrong parang reason kung bakit siya umalis. Now, if the reason is for...
Wait a minute. When you say wrong reason on whose part? On Wesley or on the National Sports Association for chess?
On the National Sports Association, because hindi nila naagapan yung situation, tuloy, nakaalis yung national athlete. But if it's a situation like Jaja Santiago, who is going to get married to a Japanese coach, and so she will change her citizenship because of that. Or for other athletes, let's say in basketball, who go to Korea or Japan because they have substantial offers for a better life ahead.
Or Kai Soto.
Or Kai Soto, for instance. So those guys are all athletes going abroad. But the exodus of Philippine athletes, it's not just one way. There are also athletes who are coming to the Philippines. For instance, Justin Brownlee has now become a naturalized citizen to play for the Philippines. I'll give you another example. Kayla Sanchez, who is from Canada. She's full-blooded Filipino, but she was born in Canada. Kayla Sanchez is a two-time Olympic medalist. So she got a bronze and she got a silver in medley relays.
She's a track star, right?
No, she's a swimmer.
She's swimmer ba? Sorry.
And so Kayla Sanchez decided that to represent the Philippines in the coming Olympics, but there are various rules, and unfortunately, inconsistent rules governing athletes moving from one country to the other, depending on your sport. In swimming, there is a 1-year residence. So Kayla Sanchez will have to establish 1-year residence in the Philippines to change her representation of her country from Canada to the Philippines. In terms of
wait a minute. Pasensya na kasi syempre, alam mo, curious yung mga viewer natin. Si Justin Brownlee ba, nag 1-year residence din bago siya binigyan ng citizenship? Ano yung kaibahan?
Well, yung basketball, iba naman ang patakaran. Swimming requires a 1-year residence. Believe it or not, in volleyball, if you change citizenship, if you go from one country to the other, like what will happen with Jaja, the residence period is 2 years. So, paiba-iba
By international standard, by international rule.
International federation rules, yes.
Okay.
Pag international volleyball, ang pag-uusapan, ang rule nila, changing citizenship will require a 2-year residence. Doon naman sa swimming, it's just a 1-year residence. Sa basketball, walang residence. As soon as you get your naturalization papers and you are eligible to play for your new country, it's instantaneous. You show a passport and you're okay. But in basketball, a national team can recruit only one naturalized player. So, hindi pa pwede yung... now, I'll give you another example. In handball, there is no restriction. There is no restriction as to how many naturalized players you can have. Qatar in 2015, in the World Handball Championships, they got the silver medal. And the reason is they recruited Serbians, Bosnians, Montenegrins, Danish athletes, and they stocked up their national team with all these foreigners who were given passports overnight. As a result, nakakuha sila ng silver medal. So,
hindi ba naging issue naman yan sa France na okay, they're all wearing the French journey, but if we do a genetic test, they're all from West Africa.
It's very difficult now to say who's really a pure Frenchman or a pure American, just like there is no pure Filipino.
Yeah.
So, with France kasi, they have so many colonies. They have, French Algerians and all of these people who have some kind of descent that can trace them back to France. Then they become eligible under
but even our Philippine women's football team, when you look at the profile, teka, tisay lahat siya, nakamukha ng anak ko lahat siya na.
Tama yun, Cito, no? But the common denominator is Filipino lineage. Dapat may blood. And, in basketball, that's the problem because there is such a rule as yung jus sanguinis. And tayo, if by blood, you can prove that you are Filipino or you have Filipino lineage or descent or heritage, then you are eligible for citizenship. In FIBA, they do it by jus solis, which is by law. So they don't recognize you by blood. They only recognize by law. So that means if you are a Filipino, if you're let's say an American citizen, but you have Filipino blood, but under FIBA rules or basketball rules, you didn't get your Filipino passport before you turned 16, you will not be considered a local. You will only be considered a naturalized citizen. So like Jordan Clarkson, for instance, he is of Filipino lineage. He cannot play for the Philippines as a Filipino. He can only play as a naturalized citizen because he got his passport after 16. So, there are so many different rules. And I'm saying, dapat, if you're the International Olympic Committee, you should standardize and make consistent all the eligibility rules. How many years of residence you need, and whether it's jus solis or jus sanguinis, what is the interpretation? It's got to be standard because if not, nagkakagulo tayo eh. We don't really know who's coming or going.
Okay, but how does all of this affect the Philippines? Because, when what's his name? Yung magkapatid na, sabi siya, ewan ko pa, parang kulang ako sa tulog tayo today. Yung magkapatid
Santiago
na nag-Japan.
The Ravenna brothers?
Oh, Ravella. Sila Ravella brothers.
Kiefer and 30.
Kiefer, tsaka sturdy. Sabi ko, di ba, lumaki nga yung isa dyan doon sa tropa natin. But I was saying, let them go. If no one can pay them good salaries and give them good playing experience, let them go. But, but now parang teka, marami na pala ito, ang dami na palang umaalis. Is this going to hurt Philippine sports?
I don't think so. I think over the long run, ito mga athletes natin, Filipino athletes who are playing basketball, for instance, in Japan or Korea, they'll eventually come back to the Philippines and play in the PBA. And it's their homeland. But right now, if they're being offered anywhere between 700,000 pesos to 1 million pesos a month, it's very, very difficult to decline an offer such as that, because in the PBA, the maximum salary that you can get on a monthly basis is 420,000 pesos. Ang laki ng diferensya. So you cannot you cannot fault these players from going overseas and looking out for their families, looking out for their future. The only thing is, yung pagkasabi ko kanina, Cito, no, is that okay lang kung ganun ang reason. Pero kung yung reason is because galit ka sa National Sports Association mo o hindi ka na alagaan,
Yes.
yung mali yun. That should be curtailed.
What needs to be done? I don't want to get you into trouble. I don't want you to become controversial. But come on, let's call a spade a spade.
Okay.
For many decades, this not all, but a number of national sports associations became the personal domain of people who got themselves elected into that position. What needs to be done once and for all to straighten out these NSAs?
Well, I think it's important for the Philippine Olympic Committee leadership to exercise its will and make sure that things are in order. Now, there are certain constitutional changes being pushed by our POC president, Mayor Bambol Tolentino. And he's now looking at age limits. He's looking at term limits, not only for the POC, but also for the NSAs. And I think this is going to be very good for sports. It'll eliminate all these long-running terms of people who refuse to give up their leadership, even if they no longer are capable of ruling with dignity. And I feel, for instance, in the Track and Field Association, nagkaroon na ng change of leadership. From Mr. Popoy Wico, it went to Mr. Terry Capistrano. And that also signaled a change in the attitude towards a world-class athlete like EJ Obiena, who was being prejudiced, who was being put under fire, and actually almost forcing him to consider changing citizenship. Can you imagine that? Again, that would have been the bad reason for going to another country. Pero buti naman naagapan in EJ Obiena, because of his loyalty to the country and such a wonderful athlete, decided to stay Filipino.
Yeah, but how do we change the situation? Because another defect I've seen, and please confirm or deny it, but many of these so-called leaders of NSAs are politicians, politically connected. Pero pag tinanong mo, teka, pati na nung athletic background mo, patingin nga nung mga certifications mo in sports management, in executive management of talents, etc. Parang wala naman din.
Well, may pros and cons yan. No? If you're a politician, if you're a government official, then you have access to resources, and you can get backing from the Senate and from the Congress. If you are able to use your connection in a good and positive way, why not?
But that dates back to the patronage politics of this society and this country. And I mean, is this the same in other countries that excel in sports? I mean, like in the US, in Europe, or Australia, or Japan, yung kanila bang mga NSA and yung kanilang athletic bodies are full of politicians or bata-bata ng mga politiko?
I think if you go through the list of different sports officials, you will find many government officials involved in sports. For instance, in FIBA, you would have the husband of the former New Zealand Prime Minister occupying a very sensitive position in the International Basketball Federation. But I think in our situation, in the Philippine situation, Mayor Bambol Tolentino, for instance, a politician whom we all know, whose brother is a senator, Senator Tol, he has done so much for Philippine sports.
Well, no, there's no question regarding that, Quinito. No,
He's
I
been
will
involved in
not
cycling too.
challenge the
Yeah.
accomplishments of Bumble. I've supported
Oh.
him, I've interviewed him. But by and large, parang naka-short pants pa ako noon eh. Parang, hello, kung sino-sino ng politiko ang nagmamanage, and it was always an issue. And that became evident every time there is a parade of our athletic contingent in Southeast Asian Games or in the Olympics. Parang mas marami pa yung politiko at mga sabit kaysa sa mga players and athletes.
Mukhang naman nagbabago ngayon. Mukhang nagbabago.
Okay.
Ako, I can see the changing of the guard, so to speak. No, with the constitutional changes and amendments being pushed by Mayor Bumble, it's looking good. It's looking good.
Is Mayor Bumble pushing for at least a minimum requirement of athletic knowledge or expertise? Kasi baka hindi man lang alam nung ma-appoint sa isang NSA kung ano yung mga terms eh. Na-appoint lang siya dahil campaign manager siya ni Congressman so-and-so.
I think it's changing. I think now, if you look at the profile of our National Sports Association presidents, maganda na ngayon. You've got people, you've got professionals like Terry Capistrano, for instance, who's head of the Athletics Track and Field Association. Certainly a very qualified individual with a heart for athletics, because he himself was a college track star in his heyday. So, ganon, no? You've got, for instance, Al Palillo, who's an executive with PLDT, whose son was a national youth basketball player, and is a sportsman himself. He plays golf, he played basketball in his college days. So Al Palillo being president of our Samahan Basketball ng Pilipinas is also a prime example of a very competent executive and professional heading a national sports.
Okay, so shifting gears, what incentives are locally available to at least make sure, kasi right now in the job scenes, okay, among employees or employable people, they say, well, if there's opportunity to travel, if there are regular training programs, if there is a program for acceleration in terms of expertise, blah, 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 they join those companies. I don't think it's any different for sports. Well, what do we have as far as you know? And hindi ka naman abogado ng NSA, no? Tsaka ng POC, but you're the expert din, Quinito Henson.
Well, I think the incentive, if you're talking of athletes, of course, there will always be the incentive of being able to represent your country. And sports will open up a lot of doors for you in the future. If you're an official or an executive, I think the incentive of being involved in a national sports association is purely passion and purely love of country.
But Quinito, Heidelin had, I mean, I don't want to use the word, no, but she practically had to beg for support online before the officials and the business people started, teka, nakakahiya ito. Nakakahiya na yung ating Olympian ay manghihingi ng suporta online. I mean, why does this have to happen?
Well, I think it's the process of government because funding is generally coming from the Philippine Sports Commission. And now we've got a new chairman, si Dicky Bachman, whom I think would be also nice to interview, because the process of releasing funds has to be quick. It has to be responsive to the times. Hindi pa pwede yung NSAs are advancing a lot of money, because after a while, there's not enough resources from the private sector to be able to boost the campaigns of an EJ Obiena overseas and Heidelin Diaz, etc. These are world-class athletes who really need to be backed by big budgets. So I think that has to be the flow of funds coming from government, specifically the Philippine Sports Commission, has to be quick, has to be responsive and sensitive to the times. But Cito, we've been talking about citizenship. You mentioned Yukasaso. I don't want to let this issue go by, because Yuka Saso won her U.S. women's golf championship at the age of 19. But the Japanese government is saying that before you turn 22, you have to make a decision. I think this requirement for citizenship, forcing Yuka to decide whether Philippine or Japanese, is selective, because I have a list of names here of Filipino Japanese who have competed in the Olympics for the Philippines beyond 22. And they did not have to relinquish their Japanese citizenship. So I'm saying, bakit ganun? But si
pera
Kasaso, yeah, there's a
I'm
lot of
saying
commercial.
pera because that was
Oo.
where I was going to lead our conversation to. Sports and the funding of athletes and sports programs, particularly in the private sector abroad, not in the Philippines, has been based on the fundamental return on investment. Kung
Yes.
you Kasaso, being a golfer and golf being a national passion of the Japanese, that's a big deal.
Yes, it is a mainstream sport. Pero ang punto ko rito is that why was she being forced to decide? I mean, it's a
What do you know that we don't?
it's a curtailment, I think, of a person's human right. For instance, let me give you an example. Kiyomi Watanabe, at 25 years old, she represented the Philippines. She was born in Cebu, by the way, but she lives in Japan, and she represented the Philippines in the Tokyo Olympics. What about Tomihiko Hoshino, who competed in the 2012 Olympics, born in Shizuoka in Japan, at 25 represented the Philippines. So was not forced to choose whether Filipino or Japanese citizenship. That person continues to live in Japan. So selective ang nangyayari.
Who
And we have
dropped
had
the
so
ball?
many.
Who dropped the ball on this one?
Well, I really don't know what's happening, because I feel Yuka kasi, I know her personally, and I could see her face rocked with emotion when she was told that she had to choose, because she didn't want to give up her Filipino citizenship. But at the same time, she didn't want to give up her Japanese citizenship as well, because her father is Japanese. But Yuka was born here, and she went to Japan when she was 3 or 5 years old, and then came back here at 9 years old. She has very strong ties with her mother's relatives. She speaks Tagalog very well. Her father, Masakazu, hardly speaks English, but speaks Tagalog and Japanese. Can you believe it? So, I just feel it's so painful for her to have had to choose between Filipino and Japanese. And in the end, she chose Japan because, the passport of Japan is so powerful. It can get you without visas to go to so many countries. So she chose on the basis of what is good for her family and what is good for herself, but it hurts her. And
let me ask you that,
hindi tama.
Quinito, the powerful passport, because that's popped up, the power of the passport. Now, Gab, standby muna, no? The powerful passport, can we do something about that? Kasi I remember at one point, a European diplomat telling me, Cito, Filipinos could travel a lot easier if it were not for your your Department of Foreign Affairs insisting that their counterparts clamp down because of fake passports, because of illegal migration, etc. Parang we limited the power of our own passport. Is that true?
Well, I would have to think yes. But the realm of giving power to our Filipino passport, that's beyond our scope of discussion.
Yeah, I know. Just a quick question because we need to end the talk now.
Yeah, pero masakit nga tingnan because yun nga isang dahilan kung bakit Yuka decided on Japanese citizenship is because of the power of the Japanese passport. It gives her so much access. It gives her so much flexibility in moving from one country to another. And if you're a world-class, world-ranked golfer, you need that. You need to be able to make quick decisions to decide which competitions, which tournaments you're going to join.
Well, Quinito, as always, a very interesting conversation. We learned a lot. And I'm going to have to knock on your door very soon because I don't think this conversation is near anywhere from finished. But anyway, have a good day. God bless you. And greetings to your loved one.
Maraming salamat, Cito. Thank you.
Okay. That's Dean Quinito Henson, one of the most authoritative, if not the most authoritative and respected sports columnist and sports persona in the country. We'll go for a quick break and we will go shift to another topic regarding mental health of students. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Okay, welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. For our second topic, it's going to be a quick one because I know some of you don't really want to talk about such a heavy topic such as mental health. But if you do recall, it was reported that over 400 students had individually committed suicide in the previous year or 2021, or if I'm not, you have to forgive me, my memory is lapsing this morning, but we are going to tackle this issue with our next guest. Gab, please roll out the introduction.
John Carandang is a licensed psychologist. He is also the CEO and founder of the Carandang Institute, a mental health service provider. Carandang previously worked as a guidance counselor and psychometrician for preschool and primary schools for 3 years.
Okay, John, welcome to the program. You are a clinical psychologist and you already know the subject matter about students and suicide. So, where did we go wrong as far as society is concerned, as far as our system is concerned? Because, 400 students in a year and 1,000 plus attempting to do the same has been very disturbing, if not just for myself, but for many parents.
Yeah, thank you, Cito, for having me here again. So, yeah, very controversial yung topic, very sensitive. So, basically, it's really a matter of getting to know more about our young people today. Kasi parang hindi natin sila kilala ngayon because of maybe a big factor is the digital space or the social media, which is hindi na natin alam, so nasi-censor kung ano yung napapanood nila or nababasa nila o nakikita nila. Kaya siguro medyo malaking influence yon. Second, siguro by the poor parenting kasi medyo hindi na po tukma yung language on how to talk with the young ones. Medyo alarming din talaga, dumadami po. And the third one is the mental health issues na talagang it really exists yung mga feeling, mood disturbances or emotional disturbances or distress nowadays kasi from the pandemic to the new normal to the normal na. So parang di ba po last time we discussed already the mental health. So I mentioned that one of the top issues that will be rising after the pandemic will be the mental health issues. And sad to say, ang nabibiktima rito ay tayo. Hindi lang po kabataan, nagkataon lang na marami pa pong kabataan apektado ngayon dahil nga siguro sa adjustment ng mga pagbabago nangyayari ngayon sa lipunan.
Okay, John, where are you? What is your position regarding the public open discussion of suicide? Kasi, you know, I was provided by Team Agenda the guidelines from the World Health Organization, and I found it very disturbing, and I would label it as escapist and living in denial. Kasi sinasabi nila, don't play stories about suicide prominently and don't unduly repeat such stories. How can you not talk about 400 plus cases of suicide in 1 year and 1,200 or 1,600 attempted suicides? Then they said, don't use language which sensationalizes or normalizes suicide or presents it as a constructive solution. I mean, hello, kailangan pa bang sabihin yun? But at the same time, not talking about it, does it really help?
Yeah, actually, the statement of the World Health Organization is a research based, no. Pero kasi nagkakaroon kasi ng misinterpretation kung ang pinag-uusapan natin suicide is not an expert. Example, pag nag-uusap ng about suicide tapos without any strong knowledge about the impact of that conversation, it will lead to more dangerous one. Kasi kami, personally, ako, as a psychologist, I'm very much careful about saying some words na baka mag-trigger. Okay, instead of saying, like for instance, have you ever tried or attempted na mag-suicide or naisip mo ba? Sinasabi ko na mayroong bang pumasok sa iyong negatibong pag-iisip or nasa kalooban na magdudulot ng kapahamakan?
But does talking about it normalize it? I mean, parang like me, I've openly talked about it, that I have considered it. I have unconsciously exposed myself to it as a young adult. And I have friends whose children, whose sons have committed, have died from suicide. But parang, hello, itatago na lang natin forever? We're talking mental health. We're not talking about suicide per se, but suicide is the aftermath of mental health, and we need to have these conversations. What do you say as a clinical psychologist?
Yeah, kasi meron pong mga nagtitrigger. Okay, so as much as possible, let us be more sensitive. Kaya tama po kayo, hindi naman dapat po itago ang pag-uusap, no? But let us be more mindful about kung sino kausap mo, paano mo kinausap, saan mo kakausapin, saan mo pinag-usapan. Kasi it is very sensitive issue. One best example po. Merong ako nababalita sa social media na nagpakamatay si ganito. Okay? It's okay. Sige, nasabi nagpakamatay siya, talagang nakakalungkot. Pero yung isi-share mo para mapag-usapan, parang para sa akin it's disturbing kasi hindi yun ang proper venue para mapag-usapan ng suicide sa social media kasi nagbibigay ng ibang kuro-kuro na hindi mapifilter po.
I agree with you, John. Okay, the question is, where and when are these appropriate conversations and settings happening? I have not heard of regular, organized dialogues, conversations, seminars, in communities, in schools, etc. Kumbaga, masama lang loob niyan, pakainin mo lang yan, tulugan mo lang yan, etc. But they're never scheduled, okay, we are going to have this topic, and along this topic is mental health and what your options are, as well as why you should not even think of suicide.
Yeah. That's the reason why also that I'm very much active on going to schools and different schools to talk about it for increase the awareness and to help one another na kapag mayroong mga red flags ng kapwa estudyante, hindi siya tipong papabayaan or invalidate. Okay, tinuturuan ko na rin po personally as a clinical psychologist on how to talk to the person na talagang meron ng idea. Halimbawa, friend, ano kaya ang pakiramdam ng mga tao? Iiyak kaya ako? Iiyak kaya sila pag wala? Pag ganun pa lang, sige friend, pwede natin pag-usapan to dahil ito yung tinuro ni Mr. Carandang during our seminar. Sad to say, medyo kulang pa talaga tayo ng awareness para dito or walang organized talagang na community sa barangay level na nag-o-organize to talk about it. Kasi at first, di ba, tama naman po, na dapat sa family pa pag-usapan. Kasi ang mga magulang ang una nakakakilala sa kanilang mga anak. Okay? At dapat maging bukas yung mga magulang sa mga sa feelings kasi minsan talaga nakakalungkot mang isipin kaya nagkakaroon ng distress ang mga kabataan ngayon is not because of wala silang mapag-usapan, mapagsabihan, but rather na-invalidate yung feelings sa mismong tahanan nila. Kaya tuloy ang
binabaliwala yung nararamdaman nila na experience o iniisip nila binabaliwala sa bahay.
Karamihan yon kasi parang sinasabi, hindi naman ako naiintindihan ni mami. Sabi lang sa akin, batulog lang ako, kumain lang ako, go on lang. May mga positive toxic positivity which is hindi nakakatulong. Unlike dito sa social media, 'di ba? Parang welcome sila pero hindi naman naproproseso yung feelings. Kaya nga mas malaking challenge sa amin na kausapin ang mga magulang, i-train ang mga magulang para doon pa lang sa hapagkainan, okay? Na pag may nabago sa pag-uugali, sa behavior at sa emotions ng mga anak nila, doon pa lang pwede nang pag-usapan ang mental health per se, not in particular na suicide. Kasi siyempre yung suicide ang pinaka last resort na. Pero doon pa lang, paano magkakaroon ng mental hygiene na lang sa bahay. Simpleng mental hygiene. Simpleng at doon sa tahanan per se, tatahan ang mga kabataan ngayon. Diba yung tahanan, from the word itself, tahan na. Ang nangyayari kasi yung tahanan, nagiging distress or nagiging way of, ayoko lang sa tahanan kasi nakaka-trigger ang parents ko, nakaka-trigger ang kasamahan ko sa bahay. Toxic sila. Buti na lang dito sa social media, meron akong acceptance. Well, medyo nakakalungkot na realidad po yun.
Okay, so what should we start to do? Kasi ito nga, maraming nawala. Parang maraming nagpakamatay, period. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, okay? Maraming nagpakamatay, maraming nag-attempt magpakamatay because of mental health, because wala silang mapuntahan, they could not find refuge or comfort or counseling. It tells us we've got a problem, and Senator Win Gatchalian is already addressing it by way of legislation. Now, what else needs to be done? You're the expert here. What else needs to be done?
Okay, first, an open communication with the parent-teacher so that the parents have a big idea of what is happening to their kids or to their children during the school. Second, yung visibility ng mga guidance counselor and psychologist sa lahat ng school setting. Kasi talagang kulang po tayo ng guidance counselors. Sad to say, hindi napupunuan pa. Kaya tuloy, hindi alam ng mga bata kung saan pupunta. Third, yung ipag-equip na rin sa mga teachers to understand the feelings of kids, of their children, of their students, and to know the red flags. Pag ito nakita ng mga kabataan na merong matatakbuhan sila kahit nasa loob ng paaralan o kahit sa church, even the church per se, the pastors or the church leader can create a ministry for this, no? To provide mental wellness for every churchgoers. It's a big help kasi talagang at least pag ako personally nagkaroon ng kalungkutan sa sarili ko na hindi ko alam kung saan ako tatakbo. Dahil ako ay malapit sa teacher ko, I can easily talk to my teacher and unload my baggages. Doon pa lang at yung teacher na yon may experience or may simple knowledge on empathic listening. Okay na po. Tapos sa kanya po dadalhin sa professional. is a big help na rin po. Kasi ang importante naman po dito is ang bawat estudyante o tayo mismo ay may makakausap. Hindi virtual ha. Maganda kasi yung personal touch, may personal touch. Kasi doon mo mararamdaman yung tibok ng puso, yung non-verbal cues, na kung saan mas maririnig mo pa rin yung mga kinikilos niya. Kaya malaking hamon po talaga to.
What about forums?
Yeah.
Sabi mo nga, ikaw pumupunta ka sa mga schools, pero as a professional and being out there, do you see if there are enough of these forums that address the most vulnerable? Kasi yung suicide naman hindi lang yan sa school marami sa workplace, etc. And like also, you know, when I was going through this the World Health Organization quick reference guide on responsible media reporting on suicide, biglang sabi ko, teka, are there even enough hotlines in the Philippines? And are they prominent? Are they actually given enough support or endorsement by celebrities?
Opo, enough hotline, I think hindi pa masyadong aware ang mga tao doon sa hotlines, pero marami naman pong nag-o-offer ng pre-counseling. In my church, per se, in Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Manila, we offering pre-counseling. The forums is very important, pero sana doon sa curriculum magsimula. Yung mental hygiene, parang part siya ng, di ba, science and health, kung merong subject na doon sa health, isama na lang din pati, okay, yung mental hygiene o mental health, para na sa ganon as early as 7 years old o grade 1 o kindergarten, marunong na yung bata na i-validate or i-express ang kanyang feelings in a positive way. Oo, mas totoo ang galit, totoo ang lungkot.
There is information, they can connect to their emotion.
Yes.
Hindi mystery and confusion ang umiiral.
O abstract, no? O abstract na pwede naman kasi magalit ang tao, pero paano mo i-express to sa tamang pamamaraan? Pwedeng malungkot ang tao, pero paano mo i-handle ang kalungkutan? So, doon pa lang dapat ituro na. Para at least kahit paano, pagdating sa oras na pangangailangan, alam ng bata kung paano, kahit paano, ang adaptive coping mechanism.
Ayun. Okay. Well, we live in very stressful times. We live in very challenging times. And mental health is going to be a major issue. Anyway, John, thank you very much, John, for your time this morning. God bless you and may He bless the work of your hands. Huwag kang titigil sa ginagawa mong pag-ikot sa mga eskwelahan because you will save lives even without you knowing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's all for the glory of God. Thank you. God bless us.
Amen. Okay. And that's John Carandang, clinical psychologist, and he is also the founder of the Carandang Institute, a mental health service provider. Okay, let's now go for our closing blessing for this week. It is from the King James Version of Psalm 19, verse 14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. To those of you who are struggling with mental health, depression, loneliness, confusion, there are people out there who still believe in you, who still care for you. Magkatok-katok lang, magdial-dial lang. We are all here for you. May you find power and relief in the Word of God. God bless all of you. I'm Cito Beltran. Thank you for joining us here on Agenda. Please keep it on One News.